a lot of things that unfolded very quickly. And I think as we all knew, none of us had any notice. I didn't have a heads up. Actually, one of my good friends from college texted me a group chat saying, "Decisions out?" question mark. And I was like, "Wait, what?" Anyway, so it all unfolded very quickly, and it made for a very busy day, but fruitful. And like you guys have heard me say some of this via my tweets yesterday, but I think it's a huge win for Ripple, but it's a huger win for the industry. And I can't really understate that, because we've spent so much time under assault by this SEC, and they haven't lost. And to have them, put in check, at least to some degree, I think is incredibly important for the U.S. crypto market.
So, Brad, as an entrepreneur and innovator, trying to build a company, to this day, I'm still kind of surprised that a government agency acts in this fashion. You obviously have met with the SEC, you've had different experiences. Are you surprised that the government and certain aspects of the different agencies like the SEC act in this fashion?
Yes, I am surprised. I'm disappointed. I'm jaded. I'm not historically one to really subscribe to some of the more conspiratorial dynamics, and I say that, and not that I'm devoid of that, but just it's not something that I have focused on. And look, it's hard not to watch what has happened here and just be like, wait, you're kidding, right? Like, I mean, people joke to me that, like, is there going to be a movie about this? And when this started, I was like, that's silly. And now you kind of look at it like there is some serious drama, and you expect your government to work for you. You expect your government to act in good faith, if you will. And I'm sure many that are on listening, you've seen the SEC statement that came out yesterday, effectively claiming a win. It's just like, I didn't know that Washington D.C. had legalized hallucinogenics. Like that is really something. They had a very different reaction than the stock market. With Coinbase up 25%, the crypto market overall I think was up 7%. Like what? I just, to your core point of, like, I expect more from government. The good news is some of our elected officials are starting to lean in and pay attention to this. And I think that's refreshing, and that's how our democracy is supposed to work. Hopefully that is going to apply to, what is an unelected bureaucrat, and this case will certainly, I think, go far towards that.
For sure. So, Brad, with a victory for Ripple and clarity of XRP not being a security, what does this mean for the future of both the company Ripple as well as XRP and adoption?
Before this lawsuit started, before this lawsuit started, it was a digital asset after Bitcoin. And, XRP has been an artificial external factor that is down. The fact that XRP, for all intents and purposes, didn't trade for 2.5 years in the United States. So, I think this is extremely positive for XRP, kind of L1 as the speakers. And, there are a lot of advantages to the XRP ledger that I think people haven't been able to take advantage of in light of the SEC case.
Hey, Brad. Hey, Brad, I apologize interrupting you. You're breaking up a bit.
I apologize. Let me, I've got my AirPods in. Let me maybe take off my AirPods and see if that helps. Hold on 1 second. All right, can you guys hear me now? All right, sorry for that. Hopefully that works a little better. If not, don't hesitate to. I see a thumbs up out there. Thank you. You don't hesitate to interrupt. And now, of course, I totally lost my train of thought on what I was saying. But remind me where we were.
Oh, sure. I think the what is the ruling, the implications, and for the future of Ripple as well as XRP?
So, look, the implications for XRP, I think, are profound, right? So we've had this artificial pressure kind of sitting on top of us. That weight is lifted. It was a very, very, very heavy weight, but based upon a very, in my opinion, bloated bureaucratic organization sitting on top of us. So that's, I think we're going to see more entrepreneurs, more developers starting to participate in the XRP community, the XRP ledger activity. That's fabulous. And as I think I was saying right before I was breaking up, the dynamic, there are dynamics of the XRP ledger which are far more efficient and make it better for certain use cases, and I think that'll be good for the whole community. Period. For Ripple, look, I mean, somewhat similarly, obviously, our technology stack is really built on top of the XRP ledger, and we'll continue to invest heavily. There's things we haven't been able to do that now we have clarity. Again, if you go back years, I've been the words, I want a level playing field and I want clarity for the XRP community and really for crypto overall. We really have that now. And that's profound. I think I was starting to say when I was breaking up, I don't know if it's an irony or how exactly to describe it, but the fact that now that there are really only 2 digital assets that are cleared in the United States, officially cleared. Bitcoin and XRP. Now, I don't view that as a good thing. I just view that as a statement of reality of where we are right now. And I think it does call upon elected officials to, lean in and make sure that dynamic, that because they sued us and we got clarity and they've given clarity to Bitcoin, they won't even now confirm after having said it previously about ETH. So look, I think it puts XRP in a really unique position that and it lets Ripple do things we couldn't do before. And one of the things that was asked internally yesterday, we've obviously focused a lot about our non-US hiring and non-US growth, and how does that change now? And certainly it makes it easier to go out and pursue US customers. But in the current administration, I mean that the SEC and beyond, it's still a pretty hostile environment here in the United States towards crypto at large. And even with this, it's super unfortunate. Hopefully this is a sea change, but we shall see.
So, Brad, do you think that this ruling can be overturned in any way? Do you think that the SEC can appeal? Like, I know a lot of things that came out of Judge Torres, the SEC immediately had responses for. So do you think this can be overturned in any way?
Well, I mean, look, the SEC may or may not appeal. I don't know. There's arguments to say they absolutely will because they lost on a lot of their key points that they feel very strongly about. On the other hand, as you go up the judicial ladder, up the appellate structure, courts have already ruled against kind of what I'll just generically call agency overreach. And so the more they appeal, the higher it goes, the more, assuming we continue to win, the more it becomes, the implications are more substantial. They're already pretty substantial. But the other thing I would say is, look, if they were to choose to appeal, that is going to take a very long time. The law of the land as of yesterday is crystal clear. XRP is not a security. And, you're obviously seeing the U.S. exchanges, Gemini, Bitstamp, Coinbase, everybody now has, I don't know if everybody has already, but they've announced their intention to, I believe. So I think that the SEC may choose to do that. Hard to predict. I think there's risk if they do, but even if they do, that is going to take years, and for the years during that time, it's the law of the land is XRP is not a security.
And can the industry now use the Ripple defense for their cases that the SEC pursues?
I mean, the short answer is 100% for sure. We already were seeing that in some of the cases, certainly the Coinbase filing, you were seeing specific and generic references to some of the arguments we had made. And look, I take no, we don't own that, right? We really were fighting not just for Ripple, but for the whole industry. I mean, again, the SEC happened to sue me personally also, so we're fighting for me, and Chris Larson. But I'm thrilled that we're seeing some of the knowledge and experience leveraged in other cases. And I will remind people, like, this is really the first time the SEC has lost, but it's also the first time the SEC couldn't just bully the victim. They were stealing people's lunch money, and we had the fortitude, we had the courage, and willingness to really invest the money to fight. And I think it's incredibly important to the industry. And now there is a little bit of a blueprint that others can use.
So, Brad, with this victory and clarity, does this open the pathway for Ripple to do an IPO in the near term?
Tony, it's a really fair and good question. You have followed the company and some of my comments closely. It was at Davos 2020 that I said Ripple wouldn't be the first company to go public in the U.S. in the crypto space, but also not the last. A lot has changed since I said that. Look, I think from my point of view, we have been focused on building shareholder value, whether public or private. We have been thinking about shareholder liquidity for our employees, for our investors. And we're certainly going to look into different options in that regard. But look, let's face it, even with this decision, the US SEC is hostile towards crypto. So, the SEC has to approve an S1 to go public. They approved Coinbase's S1 and then sued them. I think if you were to ask Brian Armstrong, is he glad that he went public in the United States, he might be careful with his words, but he might not have a clear answer that was the best choice. And so we are not in a hurry towards that end, but I'll go back to what I said at the beginning. Shareholder liquidity and shareholder value are what we're trying to do here, and we'll continue to do that.
Yeah, that's a great point. I know there's still a lot of headwinds out there with the SEC and other government agencies. So on that note, in getting the United States on track to proper and clear, comprehensive regulations, there are quite a few bills out there. Tom Emmer has put out the Securities Clarity Act. Patrick McHenry and Glenn Thompson put out a draft bill. Lummis Gillibrand resubmitted their bill yesterday. Any thoughts on any of the bills? I don't know if you got a chance to look through them and what might be a clear leader and offer the best solutions.
Look, I think it's incredibly encouraging, and I saw some public tweets from some of the names you just mentioned yesterday about the Ripple case specifically, and I think it's great to see them reintroduced. I think the decision in our case is going to spur more conversations in DC because of this, and that is also very good news. What's been frustrating to me throughout this process is that the SEC, who's supposed to work for the people, not just accredited investors, has really, kind of lost their way. Like I'll remind everybody who's listening, the SEC's mission statement starts with the sentence, protect investors. I think that when I think about the bills introduced, there's a little like another thing that could happen is the SEC could actually go back to really understanding why they exist. In this particular case, you had the exact investors they purport to protect trying to sue them. I mean, by the way, huge shout out to John Deaton. I have met him once really in person, and we intentionally kept our distance during this process. But, you talk about people who have been incredibly impactful. A big shout out to John. If you don't follow him on Twitter already, you should be. Anyway, I guess, Tony, I think, Tony, you asked that question. I didn't totally answer the question. There isn't one bill that I look at and say, well, that's perfect. I don't think perfection should get in the way of progress. The fact that the European Union with 27 countries is ahead of the United States, which is one country, in creating a framework, which, again, MiCA, which is the framework that's been introduced in the European Union, it's not perfect. But it's a lot better than where we are here in the United States, where you have an SEC that's completely out of control and suing people as a tool towards regulatory clarity. And one of my favorite tweets that I put out there was this idea that ambiguity masquerades as power. The more confusion the SEC sows in this system, the more power they think they have. And that is, back to one of your earlier questions, like that is not what the government is supposed to be doing, period.
Yeah, and I agree with that 100%. I mean, just what you were talking about, my work, all right, is crypto based, and I make revenue and I pay the government with the money that I make from crypto. And now, they hire these rogue agencies that are attacking the same companies that I'm trying to make a business in, and it's just really harmful to everyone. And not to mention just failing to understand how the technology works completely, and just assuming bad actors right from the get-go, which there are bad actors, right? So there is a need. What are your thoughts on like an SRO for crypto assets at large?
Well, I'm going to comment a little bit on your introductory thoughts there. I agree. Kind of what it's amazing to me that you have other countries literally reaching out and soliciting entrepreneurs and soliciting the companies like Ripple to come to their jurisdiction, and the tax dollars, and Ripple now stands at 900 employees, and we intentionally are trying to not hire as much in the United States these days. Maybe that'll change a little bit now. But look, a self-regulatory entity, I think, I probably don't know that I have seen or think it's likely to be successful as compared to actually the government and maybe even the SEC doing the work. Like, they're spending so much money and hiring more litigation attorneys. Just do the work. Like, as you already pointed out, but most of the people I know in crypto are good actors who want to play by the rules, but we need to know clearly what the rules are. Now, we now have that for XRP, and that is just a hero's, like, it gives me a slightly euphoric reaction to even say that out loud to this group. It's awesome. It came at an extremely high price, and that's not how this should work.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, especially for smaller decentralized projects that don't have, they don't have a huge amount of capital in order to fight the SEC back. That's really troublesome if you look at the entire industry at large. XRP now has clarity. Was there anything else in the court documents that will put up barriers for Ripple the business and how they use XRP?
When the case started, we obviously made a point of focusing on non-U.S. customers and non-U.S. activity, to be outside of the SEC. That continues. There are things that I think we are still processing and figuring out in the context of the judge's ruling about institutional sales. The good news is, in many ways, the case was more positive and giving us more degrees of freedom than we had fully expected. However, there's a couple things that we were kind of surprised by. It seems like the ruling does more to protect the institutional investor, purportedly, who is a group of, I'm not sure the hedge funds needed a lot of extra protection. These are all accredited investors who have a lot of knowledge and resources to do that work. But look, it's been less than 24 hours, or maybe right around 24 hours now. So the team at Ripple is still evaluating some of the next steps, but we're feeling very good about the opportunity ahead. And if you think about the SEC's statement about they're pleased with the win, you're like, well, the SEC brought 3 lawsuits: one against Chris Larson, they lost; one against Brad Garlinghouse, they lost; one against Ripple, they mostly lost. And again, I'm guessing many of the people listening will remember I said a long time ago, we would have settled this thing so long ago if they simply would have agreed on a go-forward basis, XRP is not a security. Guess what? We got that now. And again, we had to fight a long, hard battle, a lot of money, a lot of time, and frankly, a lot of stress. But I really just could not be more pleased with how this played out.
So, Brad, with the victory and this news certainly making the news cycle, in addition to big players like BlackRock entering the market, Charles Schwab, Fidelity, and Citadel launched a crypto exchange. And with the backdrop of the EU and the UK also passing regulations, like you said, though, it's not perfect, but at least they're moving forward. Do you think it adds some level of urgency for Congress to act sooner than later?
Well, I think absolutely. And I think you did see a couple of, small examples of tweets, about that yesterday. I saw one that I think I retweeted from Tom Emmer. It doesn't make sense. I'm not going to be upset about the fact that XRP and Bitcoin are now the only two that have clarity, but that doesn't make sense. And as I've said, like this was a fight for the whole industry. So it just strikes me that this should be a call to action to more of the elected officials. I did hear in a positive way from a couple of our elected officials in Congress yesterday in a very positive way. And so I'm hoping this catalyzes. I also want to be respectful of the legislative process. Is not easy. Frankly, I think what happened with FTX and how much Sam Bankman-Fried was leaning into Washington, it was a setback for the whole industry, for sure. But hopefully enough time has passed, and decisions like this highlight the need for Congress to act, that we'll see some activity.
For sure. Brad, I know that you only have about 20 minutes. I'm assuming you have to drop soon. Maybe final question here for you before I let you go. Folks wanted to know, are we doing any official party celebration location time?
I have no announcement on that yet. But look, this community deserves to be celebrated. The overreach by the SEC and just the totally clarity of the SEC putting politics ahead of policy, and this victory has to be celebrated. As I said earlier about one of the lawyerly comments, it's been 24 hours. I will confess to you guys that one of the frustrating things, I was pretty optimistic all along, as I shared publicly, that we would prevail here. But one of the hard things is you can't really plan a party when you don't know for sure that you're going to get the decision you want or when you're going to get it. So let the planning begin. And Team Ripple will definitely take point, but we fully intend to celebrate this and celebrate all of you in a material way. So stay tuned.
Awesome. Final question here, promise, before I let you go. I was thinking about this, and you mentioned John Deaton before, and then how XRP holders came together to play a part in this lawsuit and have our voices heard. It seems like there's a new dynamic here, and it's I think John Deaton mentioned decentralized justice, and it's analogous of crypto, right? As you could be across the globe and hold a token and be part of a set blockchain and be part of a community. What do you think about that? It seems like this is a dynamic that's going to continue to grow in the token economy that we're headed to.
I hope I do a good job of answering all your questions, and I'll say up front, I don't have a good answer for that one. Look, Ripple has always kind of started from the point of view that even if we don't agree with all the rules and laws around the world, we will abide by them. And I think, some, and I may personally have, as a human, as Brad Garlinghouse, I may have strong opinions about X or Y or Z, but what I'm trying to build with Ripple, and we have just an amazing team of people, we have to act within the rules and laws that exist. And so, decentralized justice, like the judicial systems live by the authority of nations and nation states. And, that means that we may see a future that changes, but, for as far as I can see, the borders and laws matter, and Ripple will always do our very best to be respectful of that. And again, the reason why I feel such kind of elation about this is we were clearly trying to do that here. And, I think that you all saw that in terms of, going in and meeting and being transparent. And then I think there were some tweets recently about pointing out that like Ripple's transparency ended up, sort of backfiring against it, and that was used against it. And that's just not the way this should work. But look, I like the kind of the meme, if you will, of decentralized justice. It's an interesting concept. I just don't know that it's realistic in my lifetime.
Brad, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you got to go. I appreciate you. And looking forward to maybe having you back on as we plan this party.
All right. Sounds perfect, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Brad, for coming on.